So it's great to be back. It's great to be here. And it's great to see friends, people that I have known. I wasn't sure who I'll find, if I'll be able to know anyone. And so thank you, Robert. Robert has told you that he considers him, I don't know which of us is the donkey, which is the horse. Because I think we sort of interchange those roles in different ways. One of the reasons that I'm a follower of Christ is because of Robert. The fact that he prayed for me, he exposed me to the gospel, he sort of helped me by the collar and made sure that I went to places where I could hear God's word. And the reason that one of the key reasons I must say that I am a follower of Christ is because of the work that he's done. And just see the way he has lived his life. And so I want to say thank you to you, Robert. And that's, for me, the reason why I wanted him as my best man, because he wanted someone next to you who you can look up to, and who has the authority to come and speak into your life and tell you things that you're not doing right, but also who is able to celebrate you when you're doing things well. And I must say that Robert has worked with me for a long time and has been that to me. I'm great to have seen another good friend, Frank Iredi. Frank, we did a leadership course together, but Frank was also a great support to me when I used to work at Mavuno Church. I was the head of operations, and we had a project maybe similar to one that you're undertaking here, where we were buying land, we needed to move, and one of the people who gave us a lot of support in that season was Frank. And I pray that just as you blessed us, Frank, that God will continually bless you. And I pray that even for you, Karura, as you take this journey of faith and building your sanctuary, that the same grace that God extended to us, He will extend to you. I saw an old friend also, Baba Amani. Our daughters were classmates, and so it's good to see him here. Maybe before I jump in, because it's just something that has come to mind. In recent times, whenever I've met people and they have shaken my hands, one of the first questions has been, what happened? They look at my thumb and they ask me, what happened? I actually tripped and fell because I was carrying some bags. I ended up falling on my thumb and I tore some ligaments, tendons, and I had to have some surgery to get those ligaments sorted out. But in that process, I've come to realize the truth of the scripture. In 1 Corinthians 12, it says when one part of the body is ailing, the whole body has a problem. This thumb has taught me just the importance of a thumb. I I find it difficult to split open those sachets you're given for sugar or for salt. I now have to have people do it for me. Simple things like tying laces, showering is now an interesting exercise. And you realize, and that's why for us, I guess, as a body here of men, we need to really stand with each other, especially in this season when the economy is what it's like. Because if one part of the body is ailing, the whole body somehow, we may not see it at the time. Sometimes the things are underneath, but the whole body ails. And so I'm glad that there is a men's ministry here at Karura, and I pray that you will look out for each other, that you really find out how you're doing, because as I said, if one part of the body is ailing, even though it's not as visible, sometimes the thing that is happening is below the surface. You can't quite tell, but eventually it comes out and it manifests itself. So as men who are standing together, walking together, check how you're doing. How are you doing financially? How are you doing relationally? How is your marriage doing for those who are married? How are you doing in your parenting? How are you doing in different parts of your life? Because it's very easy for us to walk and say, I know how we do it, only to find out later that someone is going through a very difficult season in life. I am in one of those seasons actually, And it's friends like Robert who have been working with me that are helping me to even be able to come and stand and talk to you about something which, when I look at people in this room, I think they are actually better placed to speak about this topic, which is about finances and wealth. I think one of the things for me when it comes to finances, I find is, I'm not sure even I would be, if there was something below a donkey, sometimes I feel I would be below the donkey. Because many of the mistakes that people make in finances, I have made. And maybe what I will be coming to speak about today is from the mistakes I've made and what I've learned about them. Through working with friends, I've been able to maybe rise to places where I thought I would look at my, you calculate sometimes what you call net asset value. And I remember once calculating and telling my wife net asset value, we are doing well. And because our net asset value was good. But it was net asset value on paper. It was things that you had done and you are hoping to realize. And sometimes things happen and you find that your paper wealth disappears. And you begin to realize it's not what you have on paper that matters. It's what is real wealth. And so as I reflected, I thought, what are some of the lessons I've learned, apart from not valuing yourself on the basis of paper? That I've got this company and when I value it, it's this much. What are some of the lessons, I guess, have I learned? I think a principal one is the need to have a plan. If I ask, how many of us have a financial plan? Often we go through life without really a proper plan. We do things in a very ad hoc manner, hoping that things will fall into place somehow. But you have a plan. And have you put that plan into place? I think for a long time, I didn't have a plan. I played things ad hoc. And so when somebody comes and says there's an opportunity, let's go, you know how it is, let's go, we go to Kitengela and look for plots. You're in. And you look for a little money and you buy a plot here, you buy another one there, you buy, and you have many plots, but you have a plan. Why are you buying these plots? I remember a friend of mine who told me the amount of wealth tied down locked in real estate that is not generating value. Anyone have a guess how much money is locked in real estate that's not adding value? I was told in the Nairobi Metropolitan it's estimated to be 12 trillion shillings. In plots, in all sorts of things. People have bought them and they have them, but they're not realizing any value. So the first question I ask is, do you have a plan? The second thing is, who is keeping you accountable to that plan? Does somebody else know that you have this plan? And as I think all of us know, when it comes to planning, that even when you are putting a plan or when you're thinking about goals, we all know the terms that we've been told that you need to have. They're called SMART goals, isn't it? Are you specific about what you're trying to achieve? Is what you're trying to achieve measurable? We know these things. Is it attainable? Is it realistic? And have you put time bounds to it? So do you have a plan? Is it a proper plan? And does somebody else know that you have this plan and is helping you to achieve it? Is holding you accountable? That every so often you're sitting down and saying, this is where I am. And remember, sometimes you may need to flex because things change, circumstances change. Look at our country now. Things are changing rapidly. And so maybe some of the plan that somebody did 10 years ago really may not hold, and you may need to review and rebase your plan. But who is sitting? Do you have a plan to start with, and who is sitting with you? You know, one of the things that I thought about a plan is that I found that plans sometimes come with age. The things that you need to think about with age. For example, I wish somebody had told me the moment that I got into working that I need to avoid buying things that I now understand are called flossets. I don't know if you know about flossets. These are things for flossing, for showing your people that you have arrived. Some of us have flossets that are our cars. Some of us have flossets that are our mobile phones. Some of us have flossets might even be the place that you live. I actually once made a move to move from where I was living because I felt, a person of my caliber needs to be living somewhere else. And in one move, I more than tripled my rent. I was in the right neighborhood. Everyone thought I was successful, but I was struggling to meet my rent payments. But I was flossing. So it looked good. But I was not putting, because I didn't have a plan, that I began to floss. So how are you investing based on it? I'll give some things that I thought you can look at. If you're in your 30s, if you're here and you're in your 20s, 30s, you need to begin thinking about putting together an emergency fund, which is up to at least 3-6 months salary, ideally 12 if you can. And once you've got your emergency fund, then you can begin to think, how do I build up towards investments? Avoid debt. This is not the time to start getting into debt. Do you have life insurance? Start putting some money towards for life insurance. If you have if you've got an employer and they've got a retirement plan, a pension scheme, are you fully into it? Maybe at this time you can then begin, if you're going to get into debt, begin to think about putting together a deposit so that you can put something out for a home. As you get married, it's the time to begin to thinking about what can you do about starting to save or invest towards children education. You see what happens when you get children? At least what I've learned is the beginning parts, yes, there are some costs, but they're not as high. But as your children grow, the costs grow. As they go into primary school, into high school, into university. So are you planning, recognizing that this child that I got today, 17, 18 years from now, I will be needing to think about university fees. And depending on where your child wants to go, if they're going abroad, for example, and they're asking you to finance university abroad, you're probably looking at anything between 5 maybe to 10 million shillings a year. In school fees, accommodation, travel. How are you going to be able to finance that? It's by what you begin to plan to do now. If you start now over a 20-year period, over that 17-year period, you can take advantage of what we know as the law of compounding. The money that you put aside, the money that you're saving, the money that you're investing, will mean that by the time your children are getting into university, you actually may have investments that are able to fund that university education without you having to call people every so often for harambes. I remember a friend of mine who was in India. He told me this story. It was a funny story. They were speaking with some Nigerians, and the Nigerian was telling them, you Kenyans, I don't understand you. Every time you're just writing to your father in Nairobi and your mother telling them, send me money, send me money. Then he was telling them, if you look at a Nigerian, you put him anywhere in the world, within 3 months, he'd be sending money home. And the Nigerian was saying, as we look for opportunities, and by the way, it's true. When I went for my master's, as Robert was saying, in engineering, I met a Nigerian. We were on the Commonwealth Scholarship together. We had landed in the UK in September. By December, he was exporting cars to Nigeria. And I kept asking him, he says, I go around looking. He said, I came here not to get an A. I came here to pass and to figure out how to sort my future as I go back. He had a plan. What is your plan? What is your plan? Are you think about investing for your children's schooling? If you're in our 40s, again, what we are seeking to do is to maximize, build up our retirement. You know, when we're in your 40s, 30s, 40s, you often don't think retirement. You think the strength will go on forever. But they say, there is a time as you grow up when you peak, and then your ability to work, your ability, your marketability, even to make in the place sometimes the job markets begin to lose, and you want to live off your retirement, off the money that you have put together. So are you putting together your retirement fund? I read somewhere that it's recommended as you're in your 50s, you should have saved at least 6 times your annual salary in your retirement. You're building it up. You should be looking at ways to increase your income. Either add some income streams. If you have a mortgage, work, if you can, to pay it down so that you're reducing how much you have on debt. Build up your investments. Begin to look and see where can I invest? What sort of, and there are lots, I think, right now, yes, the economy is hard, but I recently saw, I think, is it the most recent T-bill is at what, 17%? Can you imagine your money can be making 17% while you're sitting? So even in difficult times, there are opportunities where you can take the resources that you have and begin to put them. I think there was some of the long-term bonds, which for younger people, if you start, can help you towards your children's education. I think that right now some of them are going to up to 16%, maybe 17%. There are financial instruments, different investment opportunities that are available that you can begin to put your resources into to build the funding that you need. As you get into your, again, we've talked about the education fund, continue investing in your education fund. But even as I say that, maybe one thing I can also say is that one of the most important things is to gain financial knowledge. I think a lot of us, and me, I found that was true of me, we are very poor. We think we know a lot about finances, but we are very thin on real financial knowledge. And it's good to look for people who have been there, who have the knowledge. It's good to maybe get into in touch with a good financial advisor. It's good to buy books and just begin to build up your financial acumen so that you're able then to begin to figure out, even as you plan, how much are you investing in yourself in terms of financial understanding. I think that is critical because that's what's going to help you as you make your plans and as you execute them. So build up in this season, understand the different investment options. What do they mean? What are the risks associated? Begin to understand yourself as an individual. What is your risk profile? Some people have high risk profiles, so they are willing to take high risk for the hope of high return. Some other people can't. But I also want to say is I've come to realize that wealth is built slowly. Wealth is built slowly. If you look at some of the families we know who have huge, who have large, they've built it over generations, and it's built slowly. And it's the one, and often the wealth that is built slowly is the wealth that lasts. I think we live in an economy where deals are the ones that seem to be at the top. But I found that again, my learning as I've watched people that big deals, you get big money, but soon the deals dry up and you're back down. Yesterday I had a conversation with my friend and he was telling me of a gentleman who was very close to the former president, the late President Moi, and was really doing deals. And in those deals he bought large parcel of land out in Naivasha. But when the deals died up, his family had to sell land at a throwaway price. They were selling land that neighbors were selling for up to 5-6 million. They ended up selling it at $1 million. because of distress. Deals push you up, and you tend to make investments assuming there'll always be another deal. And so build your wealth slowly. I'm not, sometimes a deal may come to you, so take advantage of it, but let it be that it falls, whatever resources come, fall within the plan that you have. In your 50s, review your retirement and see, is there gaps? And see how you can plug them, because soon you're into your 60s and 70s, and you'll soon be living on retirement. Get into a good health insurance. Now, because by the time, if you're not in a good health insurance package, and I know you may just, many of us are with employers who give us insurance, but once you retire, you get off that insurance. So I think it's important that all of us begin to get into an insurance that is ours. Because once you're in your 60-something, it's very difficult to get into the insurance at that time. They tell you, no, we don't know you, so you just depart. So now is the time to think, how am I going to deal with my health when I leave employment? Because there will be that time. What is your portfolio like now in your 50s? How do you diversify it? Remember, this is the time most likely when your some of those high costs of schooling are beginning to kick in. And so how is your portfolio placed? Is it well diversified? If you have debt, reduce debt. Begin to have a conversation with your parents. If your parents are alive and you're in your 50s, where do they stand in terms of their own financial planning? Because if they are not properly planned, the responsibility will be yours. And you need to then understand, how am I going to manage this season? If they have assets, have they actually planned how these assets are being managed? Have they got a will in place? I remember my grandparents going to my parents for some reason. I don't know why their children didn't talk to them, but it ended up that I went to them and said, based on what I'm seeing happening around you, you need to put together a will before, at this point. And I took them to a friend of mine who helped them draw a will. That will is what saved their family from serious conflict. There's still quite a bit of instability, but there would have been serious conflict if they hadn't put a document saying this is how our assets will be divvied up when we go. I know our parents, sometimes when we start having this conversation, they feel like, and I had it once with my father, it was like, are you planning something? Do you have, what is it that you're thinking about? But you see, as Robert told you, when my father passed away in 2021, and he started by being ill in the year 2020. And I realized that suddenly now I was in charge of everything. At one point he gave me his bank card, his M-Pesa, and I could even see my mother looking, what's going on here? But it was almost like he said, now you're in control. It's you who's going to make the decisions. And once my father went, I, in a sense, I've been the one looking after my mother. And so I learned that you have to understand the dynamics in your family, and do you know where they're going? Because their needs will fall on you. So begin to understand what is going on in how your parents are when it comes to their own planning. In our 60s and beyond, we now begin to draw most likely on our retirement. I think this is the time to begin to make sure that you manage your costs. Because you're now beginning to draw on money that you're hoping will keep you going for the remainder of your life if you're when you've retired. Have a proper strategy in terms of retirement, how to use your income. I think at this time liquidity is key. I think what you find at this time is you may be not spending as much as you used to. Your children are old, so those expenses have gone. But you do need liquidity. Often it's liquidity to meet, sometimes as we've seen with our parents, to meet medical bills and things like that. You have the liquidity. What I was recently brought into a board of a company called Moran Capital that does wealth management. And what has been found is that for a lot of people in the 60s and beyond, they have a certain disease. And that disease is called that they are asset rich and they are cash poor. So whenever they need cash, they go to their children. I have a friend who was telling me in assets his father is worth in the billions. But anytime he goes to hospital, his children have to check him. So how have you structured your portfolio? Is it full of assets, land and property, which is not generating an income, which has high value? You're asset rich, but you're cash poor. This is the time not for people in our age, even for us as we plan, those of us who get to our 60s, to begin to figure out how to not hold our assets like, this plot, I can't let it go. It's time to begin to say, how do I release my asset early enough and turn them into cash, into some form of liquid instrument that allows me to meet my obligations, whatever those obligations are, and even allows you to tour. People have, can you imagine, this gentleman has billions, but he can't even take his good wife for a holiday. He can't say, let's go on a cruise. And you've worked all your life, and you have all these assets, but because you're cash poor, hata Mombasa huwezi enda. So you need to begin to to restructure, especially as you're moving into from your 50s into your 60s. You begin to restructure and say, which of my hard assets should I put in a different format that actually generates cash? Some of it might be to sell it and buy bonds, buy some form of financial instruments that every month is putting cash in your pocket, because you need cash. You no longer have the salary. Before you could sit on all these plots, because maybe somewhere there's a salary coming, but now the salary is not there. And so how are you planning that? I think the key thing for me as I've been sharing just these different life stages is to come back to the same thing and say, do you have a plan? Have you based it on the stage of your life that you are? Have you figured out what are your gaps and begun to plug them so that you're actually able to generate and build real wealth? In terms of where to put money, I think there's different investment options, fixed income instruments like T-bills, like bonds. They're there. There are unit trusts where you can put money in certain pooled investment vehicles. You can go into the equities market. Unfortunately, right now, our equities market is not doing that well. And of course, then you need a lot more thought, being able to study the different companies. Property is a good place. It's also a good place to go, but you need again to have understanding. Where am I buying? What am I buying? What is my plan for this real estate? I think one good friend of mine who's really done well in the sector says, you make money with real estate when you buy, not when you sell. It's when you buy, because you buy with a plan, with a clear understanding of how you're going to exit. Most of us buy and we have no clue. Just because somebody told you, there will be a bypass here, you buy. Whether you don't know when the bypass is coming, you don't know anything about it. So you need to be very clear. Why am I buying this real estate? What is my exit plan? Is it generating income? As you become sophisticated, there's obviously private equity, being able to invest in growing businesses or into new ventures. There are, of course, offshore options that are available. But one of these things that will tell you is therefore the need for us to have advice. And there are some good financial advisors out there. Do you have a financial advisor? Someone who is sitting and helping you make a plan and execute that plan based on your own unique circumstances and where you are in life. Because each of us is an expert in certain areas, the places that we work. But in other areas, we go to somebody else. When you need a doctor, you don't treat yourself. You go to a doctor, depending on the area of need that you have. We go to lawyers. We go to just different experts to help us. And even at this time, I think as individuals, it's important for you to say, I will go to a financial advisor who will help me be able to draw up a plan and walk with me through this plan so that I can then be able to have the sort of resources I need at every stage of my life. So I said, when I was thinking about next steps, as you listen to this one, is engage a financial advisor. I mentioned that. 2, carry out a financial audit, which you do with your financial advisor. Be able to come and say, okay, these are my assets, and these are my liabilities. It will be interesting, you might find some of the things that you call assets are not assets. Because assets must be something that is actually generating value. Some of our assets we call assets are things that are taking value from us. Your car is not an asset. It's always asking for fuel, insurance. It's a tool, but sometimes it's not an asset, and it's getting devalued by the day. So if you've listed in your whatever car asset, you might find it's not an asset. But you need to be able to say, these are my assets, these are my liabilities, and then what is my net asset value? And whatever it comes, if it's positive, praise be to God. If it's negative, at least you know, and you can do something about it. Have you done a financial audit? So that you know where you are and what the gaps are. You know, I remember once being asked by someone, and maybe I'll ask that question here. This gentleman, Oscar, is a good friend of mine. We worked together at Mavuno. Let's say I pay Oscar $1 million shillings a month, net. How much of that money belongs to Oscar? Every end of month he walks away with a paycheck, 1 million net. How much of that is his money? 900. 900K, where is the 100K going? 10, a tithe, okay. We have one name, 900,000. Anything else? Yes? Correct answer. How much he keeps for himself. If Oscar is living in a house where he pays rent 300,000, that 300,000 does not belong to him. It belongs to his landlord. That money that he goes to spend at Carrefour belongs to Carrefour. That money that he gives Total and Shell belongs to Total and Shell. That money you give to those people, that money that he pays to that school for his children's education does not belong to him. It belongs to the school. Because at the end he has to give it to them for his children to go. If he likes to shop in high-end shops, those whatever it is, those he is paying those people. The only money that belongs to you is the money that you save and invest. So if out of that million, Oscar is always left with 10,000, that is his money. Everything else, if he's paying duty for that high-end car, it belongs to. Because if he stops paying, Pastor Murithi was telling me how he was sitting once with a banker, and they were sitting somewhere and cars were passing. And the banker was telling him, that car is ours. That one is ours. You see, even that one is ours. Big cars. And the guy is driving it. Everyone thinks it belongs, but it belongs to them until you pay the bank. So remember, the only money that is yours is the money that you save and invest. And I want to challenge you that after you pay God, pay yourself. And then operate on the balance. choose to pay yourself a minimum of 10% of your income. You will survive on the balance. You know, most of us live aspirationally. We live lives of where we want to be, not the lives that we can afford now. And therefore we wake up one day and find that we are not able to even live the lives that we wanted to have. Because we try to live them too soon. We try to be like sometimes even our parents, and we forget that by the time we realize where our parents were, they had been working for some time. It just didn't happen. So I want to challenge you as part of your plan. If you're starting off, let me challenge you to take 10. If you're much older, you have catch up, be radical. Make it even 20 or 30, because you have catch up to do. And begin to decide what are some of the things you must catch up. As I said, finally, with your after the audit, develop a financial strategy, a financial plan, and then implement and monitor. Work with an advisor, work with friends. We like to do things by ourselves, but I found that success normally comes best when we work together. Let's choose to lift each other up. We like to play our cards close to our chest, isn't it? It's almost you want to get rich by yourself. Like if I get rich and Oscar gets rich, Oscar's richness takes for mine. No, let's build. And if you look at a lot of communities that have moved ahead, they've worked together. I had a friend who was telling me how he sat with some Somalis and he said, he was a Kikuyu, saying Somali was telling them, you Kikuyus, we don't understand you. All you, those Kikuyus, you go and put the money in the bank. Then when you want to do a project, you go and borrow each other's money and go, which the bank charges you for. And it's your money. He says, us, we don't operate like that. We want to build. We sit down and say, let's pull our money, we give it to Oscar, let him build. Or let him start the business. Then we will support his business. When his business grows, we will grow and he will come back. When we want to go to China, we don't all of us go. He says if you go into a plane to China, you find all the Wakikuyus going to China, all of them going to buy the same things. As we said, no. We send Robert with a list. We pay for one ticket and we get our staff one hotel bill, and the person goes and does his shopping, he brings it back. But you guys, 20 tickets, 20 hotel bills, 20 because you will not work together. And so we say these guys are getting ahead, they are corrupt, maybe there are deals they are doing, but part of it is also their thought processes. Are we willing to work together to build wealth together? Wealth that then can be utilized to do the work of God and keep us going, to make us a blessing. My final remarks when it comes to wealth. Remember, when it comes to money and wealth, we are stewards. We are stewards. The one statement I remember that was made by a pastor, I think it was Pastor Brady, says, he owns, God owns, you manage. You're a manager, you're a steward. The resources belong to God. And it is critical that we ask God, how should I use your resources? That's number one. Number two, We must remember that money is a resource. It's not the source. Many of us find our identity in how much money we have. So that when at the end of month we have a bounce to our step. But in the middle, when things are not going well, suddenly we are not as confident as we used to be. We get our identity. Money is like a source to us. We need to recognize money is a resource that comes from the source, that is given to us by the source. The source is God. And every resource is for utilization. If you make money your source, then you'll find that life can get very difficult, because your own esteem will be dependent on how money flows. We should be able to know that irrespective of how much money I have or don't have, I am still valuable because I'm created in the image of God. And God himself says that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. God himself says I am a masterpiece. We must recognize, we must have a right relationship with money. Is money your servant or is it your master? Do you use it or does it call the shots? You know, it is interesting that Jesus did not even make Satan the biggest competition for a relationship with God. He said you cannot serve God or money. He said you must choose. Who is your master? Are you serving God or are you serving money? And that is a decision all of us must make. Remember, Paul also wrote and said, for the love of money, not money itself, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. What is your relationship with money? Is money a tool or is money your lover? And so with these things are some of the questions I leave you with as final remarks. Stewardship, identity, who's the servant master, tool or love? I think if we have the right relationship and have money in its right place, then as we make our plans, we find that money becomes a blessing, not only to us, but to those around us. We're able, I sense that when we have a right relationship with money, God is able to put a lot more in our hands because he knows he can trust us to do what he wants with it. I think one of the people who, as I read the scriptures, that challenges me is David. We remember when David, even when he was told he will not build the temple, he did not go and sulk. It said he went into his treasury and just removed almost everything he had. And he said, God, who am I that you've given me this opportunity to bless you? David had a right relationship with money. His son, on the other hand, got wisdom and somewhere lost his way until he came to Ecclesiastes, where he said, you know, I've done everything that I can. I've built wealth. You know, he said, if you read it, I remember just one day looking at Solomon. He had, I think someone had estimated in today's money, Solomon was spending about almost 3 million shillings a day on food. Just food. His wealth, I think even by today's terms, is in the trillions of dollars, if you put it in today's terms. And he was holding on to it, you know, he was trying to get wealthier and wealthier. But at the end he said, I looked at all these things and I realized that they were vanity. Because if I don't have a right relationship with God, and therefore a right relationship with money, then everything else, then the foundation is wrong. So as we go and make these plans, let us ensure money never takes the place of God, and that we have a right relationship with it so that we can make the right decisions. Things like bonds, and of course you will take the length of the time of the bond based on your age. There are government bonds. Sometimes you may find some corporate bonds or commercial paper. Those and you give, and if they have the right, the right partner for the corporate or bonds or commercial paper, you will be getting a return. Either some of them pay semi-annually, some pay quarterly, but you will then have a cash flow. So you'll always have sufficient cash. Rentals are another thing, but the challenge with rentals is you have to manage them. As you grow older, you may find that it's not always easy to manage tenants. But again, if it's an income generating real estate, then that would be something to look at. But as I said, even now, if it's possible to begin to just figure out how to plan and get into. Because one of the things I think we've realized is that as people grow older, one of their biggest, sometimes cost centers is health, depending on, and when health comes, it's a cash. If you want good health care, it's cash based. And so you need to begin to see if you can get into some health insurance that will be able to carry you even as you go into retirement. Because as I said, once you leave employment, you find that unless you are able to negotiate with the provider to keep you on, which is the other way, you can negotiate with the provider to keep you on, that would be another way, so that again you're looked after in terms of health. So if you have some things like money, fixed income instruments, rental, real estate, and then make sure that at least on the health side you're looked after, I think you should be good. But as I said, there are financial advisors who can help you with this. And happy to connect you to the organization that I am now sitting with, Moran Capital. They can be of use. You had asked about how to balance. I think, as I said, for me, the first step is that plan. The plan is the one that helps you balance, because you have to be able to look and say, what is the now and what is the tomorrow? And you're able to come and say, I want to live a certain way now, but I also want to be prepared for tomorrow. And so as you draw up that plan with your advisor, you're able then to see how you balance. What are the things that, and secondly, as you had, what I said, when it comes to even some of those, as you think about investment, we're looking at saying 10, 20% of your income. You're still left with 80%. Which you can then decide, how do I plan? How do I use it? How do I use it now so that I'm able to have a good time? And I think I've come to realize that, because it's been something I wish I had learned a little earlier, that not all the ways to enjoy with our families require huge amounts of cash. I think we have, maybe because of just different things, there is sometimes a belief that everything needs a lot of cash. But memories with our children, I've come to realize that don't always, or with our families, don't need cash. But I also like what you said, you also need to invest in your own health. Are you exercising? Are you doing certain things? So that by the time you reach your 70s and 80s, you're still okay. My father-in-law is probably standing once. I think he's now 83. He's still able to drive himself from Kisumu to Nairobi. Until he went to live in Kisumu, 5 a.m., you would have found him in the gym, doing a workout for an hour. If I put him in front of you here, you'll be surprised at how trim he is. And it's because he built a lifestyle of also looking after both his body, but also your mind. And he endeavors to stay actively engaged. Even when he retired, he went into some consulting, so that he was active. He was not just vegetating. So I think I would say one is you have a financial plan, but also have a health plan and have other plans that help you to stay useful, to stay relevant, to stay engaged. Because yes, you can have all the money, but if you didn't look after yourself, then you wouldn't be able to enjoy it. And I think even with that, I say, even how you with your work, how are you spending time? How much are you giving to your work? How much are you giving to your family, to other things? So you also have to look at your time. How is your time management? So that you also have time for yourself, your family, and of course, I believe in the hope ministry and the things that God is calling you to. So I believe it's possible, but there'll always be, I think with these things, a slight tension. As you try and you'll have to keep calibrating even as you move ahead in life. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique. So asanteni sana for coming. You do not want to miss our next event on the 9th of December. Please sign up. We will have some Buzi Choma. We will do basketball. We are praying that it will not be raining so that we can also do swimming a little bit. So you do not want to miss our next event. I'll invite Robert to come and pray for your friend. And thank God for him. And pray for what he is doing, that God continues to use it in his best way he's put it.
Okay, no, thank you so much, Monique. Now you guys have clearly seen the horse. They brought back the donkey. Lord, God, I want to thank you for Monique. And thank you because he's trying to live what he preaches. I pray that your hand shall be on him. You shall grant him your healing even on his finger. You shall take care of his family, all the challenges that you know about. You shall take care of his professional work, of his business pursuits, of his desire to serve you. Lord God, your word says that they who water others will themselves be watered. So today I pray a special blessing. You shall water him. And for all the men who showed up this morning, I pray that each will have learned something in their lives shall be better. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. Let's all rise as we close. As you walk out, when we told our kitchen that we need tea at 9:30, they thought we were joking. So I'm told tea is not ready, but we have bananas that you can enjoy as we go out. Benediction from the book of Psalms 67. May God be gracious to us and bless us, and make his face shine on us, so that your ways may be known on earth, your salvation among all nations. May the peoples praise you, God. May all the peoples praise you. May the nations be glad and sing for joy, for you rule the peoples with equity and guide the nations of the earth. May the peoples praise you, God. May all the peoples praise you. The land yields its harvest. God our God blesses us. May God bless us still, so that all the ends of the earth will fear him. Now the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, and the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us now and forevermore. Amen. God bless you and have a fantastic weekend.